And now I can broadcast whenever I want. Right now, though, we're just chilling. Should I just go ahead and start broadcasting? What do you guys think? And we can just chit chat and people know we're here.
Yeah, so I have a question. Next week on Denali, is that on the 17th?
I believe so, yes.
That's on Friday and 6
Friday.
p.m.
Yep.
Cool.
I
Is
I
there
don't think
other?
we've really announced it a ton yet. I haven't made the link, so you let me. It's really you, Pat, and Ackerman, so you guys can tell me.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm leaving Friday at like 2 p.m.
Roger
Um,
that.
and I'll be gone for like 17 days or so. So
All good, brother.
yeah.
That's no big deal. I'd love to have you. We can talk about that a little bit more, tomorrow or something. We'll figure it out. I'd love to have you, but no big deal. I think it'll be epic if we can be like, our other guest panelist is on his bike heading to the desert right now to go splitboarding or something. Be pretty rad.
And then everybody can rip on me for being
Yeah.
irresponsible.
We'll rip on your hard boots on the way. We'll be like, how's he even pedal in hard boots? That didn't make sense.
I have SPDs on the bottom of my back leg.
That's what I was just thinking. All right.
Yeah,
I say
that's
we
the thing though. Like, it's probably reasonable for us to do a bunch of this kind of stuff, but maybe we shouldn't advertise it to everybody. Hey.
Yep. Very, very true. All right, gang. I'm gonna start broadcasting here. You guys all ready?
Sure.
All right. We are live. So we'll see here. Oh, 10. Yep.
You just let me know when you want me to share my screen, Ben.
Sounds good. We'll do, brother. I think we're all set up. We're just gonna let people start jumping in here. I'm seeing 15 new attendees already. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We've got about 5 more minutes before we start the trip planning workshop. You guys just hang out. We will get rolling shortly. All right, everybody. Welcome to Front Range Splitfest Online, Part 2. Tonight, we're going to be going over avalanche education. We'll also be doing an online trip planning workshop with Colorado Adventure Guides and the rest of the Weston Backcountry Guide Team. So thanks for tuning in tonight. We've all got plenty of time at home right now, so we thought this would be a perfect time for us all to get together as a community, learn some new skills, and dial in those trip planning skills. So tonight we're gonna be going over a lot of different online resources. We're gonna be talking to a lot of different guides. We're gonna have a great discussion. But first, we just wanted to address ARI with the major beneficiary of Front Range Splitfest. We weren't able to host Front Range Splitfest in person, obviously, but we are still raising money for ARI, and we encourage you to support this nonprofit as well. Weston is going to be selling 2 of next year's split boards. Our new Pal Slayer Hatchet Split. It is a 152. This is the powder board to dominate all powder boards, designed and tested by Weston Backcountry Team. The Eclipse Split is our new women's Half Moon Swallowtail, also designed and tested by our women's team. These 2 boards are some of our favorite shapes we have ever designed, and you can have them this year instead of waiting for next year. So check out westonbackcountry.com if you're interested in picking up one of these 2 boards, and you will be the first person to own it. So tonight we're going to go over avalanche education resources, trip planning resources. We're going to actually show you how to find your forecast, and we're going to have a virtual trip planning workshop with Pat Gephardt and Justin Ibarra of Colorado Adventure Guides. So we have a lot of great guides on the panel tonight. I'd like to start to introduce a few of them to you guys. You guys feel free to say hello as we introduce you. Obviously, I've got Pat Gephardt and Justin Ibarra, 2 of the top guides at Colorado Adventure Guides. If you guys don't know these names and you're interested in avalanche education, definitely hit them up during this presentation or after. These are the guys you need to be talking to get trained here in Colorado. We've also got Zach Husted, one of our Weston Backcountry guides, who's guided out of Japan for many, many years and is coming home to Colorado this year, and we are stoked to have him back. Cody Hughes, one of our guides out of Salt Lake City, guides for Utah Mountain Adventures. Big fan of riding his bike to epic destinations to splitboard. If you are into non-motorized travel, maybe Cody is a guy you should reach out to and ask for some tips. And we've also got Adam Zock here tonight from Capal Guiding in Revelstoke, British Columbia. So he is representing the Canadian guide team up there. If you're interested in a trip to British Columbia, specifically Revelstoke, this is the guy you need to be hitting up and going out with Capal Guiding. They are, the best in the industry, in my opinion. So you guys, reach out to these guys during the presentation. If you have a specific question, you can put it in the Q&A section. So just go up to your tab at the top of your screen or the bottom of your screen potentially, and click that Q&A, and you can ask a specific question. And if you just have general comments or you want to chit chat, and that's what the chat is for. So open up that chat. You can make comments. You can have a conversation. You can do anything you want. If you have specific questions, though, that you want the guide team to answer, put those in the Q&A. All right, guys, without any further ado, I am going to kick it over to Pat Gephardt, and he's going to discuss a little avalanche education. But first, we'll do a quick little poll here. On what kind of avalanche education you guys have, if any. So let us know. We are curious. Do you have an Area 1 and Area 2? Are you, very interested in taking some avalanche education? Where are you at? Maybe you're in Canada. Maybe you're in Japan. Maybe you have something other than an Area. A lot of great programs out there. All right, we've got about 70% of the votes coming in. Looks like we're about half and half. About half the people here have an Area 1, which is fantastic, and the other half are very interested. That is fantastic. All right. Awesome, guys. Well, I'm going to kick it over to Pat Gephardt, an actual instructor and educator for avalanche education. So without any further ado, here is Mr. Pat Gephardt.
All right, great. Do you want to share the presentation, Ben?
Oh, my bad. No, I'm still sharing. My bad. We're split borders.
There you go. Okay, great. Yeah, when we talk about getting into split boarding into the backcountry, we always encourage everyone to take, at least a level 1 avalanche education. So if you're looking to pursue one here in the USA, we have ARI and the AAA. Both teach level 1s, level 2s, and then a pro course as well. And in Canada and Japan, they have the AST. So if you're in those regions, you can check out those courses. But there's kind of the progression, companion rescue is really just a course designed to go over using your beacon and how it functions and doing rescues with it, using your probe and your shovel. So a very important course to take. And then if you're interested in taking a level 1 recreational, that would be the next course you take. And then off to ARI 2, which I definitely recommend everyone to take as well if they're going to be spending a lot of time in the backcountry, get into more advanced topics when it comes to avalanche science and avalanche education. Great. And there's also a lot of great books out there, both on the web and in print. These are a few in print that we recommend reading. ABCs of Avalanche Safety. Snow Sense is a great book to start with because it's just an easy read, a lot smaller in terms of number of pages compared to some other ones. So great one to kind of get your mind into avalanche education. Staying Alive in Avalanche Terrain by Bruce Trimper. This is kind of the book to have, the book to read, the book to review each year. It pretty much covers just about everything when it comes to avalanches and navigating backcountry terrain. So that's the book I really recommend everyone having. Avalanche Handbook is a little more advanced, great for people looking to get into guiding or operational things. But also a great read for anybody looking for more information in advanced topics. Avalanche Essentials, one I'm not familiar with, but we'll check out after this talk. And then Mountaineering Freedom of the Hills, which should be on everybody's bookshelf. It covers everything from camping stoves to avalanches to aid climbing, so everything's in there when it comes to mountaineering, climbing, backcountry, camping, you name it. So just a great resource to have on your bookshelf. Any questions on avalanche education programs?
I don't think we've got any questions on avalanche education programs. We did have a question quickly on bindings. Ken asked what are the pros and cons of the Burton Hitchhiker bindings versus Spark R&D? Ken, they are basically the exact same bindings, my friend. I would recommend Spark or the Hitchhiker bindings. They use the exact same base plate. All right.
Great.
So we're going to dive into trip planning resources. Pat, I'll let you continue on, sir.
All right. So some great resources out there. When I started splitboarding, one of my biggest questions was, where do I go? Especially when it came to spring, once the snowpack became safer to actually venture out into more interesting terrain, just kind of getting the feel of where to go, even in my local areas, seemed kind of challenging. So guidebooks really helped me out. Here in Colorado, we have Beacon guidebooks. They have some nice guidebooks for places like Silverton or Berthoud Pass, kind of more specific to just these small little regions. Falcon guidebooks make some great ones as well for kind of more statewide or area-wide. Colorado, different states. I have a few on my shelf. Great for kind of figuring out, maybe I want to travel to Washington and want to know kind of the classic lines. Maybe I want to take a look at. And also here in Colorado, Making Turns, which is Fritz Berry's series of books. He has 4, one on the 10-mile range, 2 on north and south of I-70, and now 1 on northern Colorado, which has some great lines as well. So For example, when I got into splitboarding, I live in Breckenridge. The 10-mile range is my backyard. So making turns in the 10-mile range was kind of my Bible when I first started splitboard mountaineering. I used that book all the time and kind of took lines off from it. Nationwide, Mountaineers Publishing, you go to that link right there. They have a ton of great guidebooks as well. But I always encourage people to go to their local mountaineering shop. They're going to have books in there you might not find other places, kind of more niche to those regions. And just talking to the guys in the shop, they might be able to turn you on to some cool objectives that you might not be able to find out about anywhere else. Shop employees always have great recommendations because they're the ones out there doing it most often. Some of the digital resources we like to use, avalanche.org, CalTopo, HillMap, Avenza, FatMap, Google Earth, Gaia, and Powder Project. Some of these are web-based. Some of these are apps themselves. Some of them have different functionalities. Were you going to do a poll here, Ben?
I am indeed. Here we go. Looks like we got a lot of CalTopos coming in. You guys are going to enjoy this evening then. Perfect. Yeah, we got quite a wide variety here. I think I will end it there and show you guys, but it looks like CalTopo seems to be the big winner there.
Awesome. I'm a fan of CalTopo myself. And now that they have an app that works both on Android and iPhone, I tend to use that as kind of my app on my phone, whereas I used to use Gaia in the past. But Justin will go a bit more into that later in the talk. But yeah, some great resources, and I can go ahead and share my screen. I don't know if the next, yep, finding your forecast, great. And another poll, Ben.
Coming, it is coming soon. All right, launched. Like we got a lot of responsible backcountry enthusiasts out there. This is good to see. We got a lot of everydayers and we got a lot of before every tours, which is fantastic.
Great. Well, awesome. I'll take over the screen if you are ready, and we'll go through finding your forecast. And then we're here in Colorado, so I'm going to go through the CIC forecast and how to navigate the website.
All right, looking good, Pat.
Okay, great. So here's avalanche.org. This is a great resource to go to find education, accidents, conditions. But if you're in a region where you don't know where to find the local forecast, this is where you want to go. It's going to point you in the right direction. Down here is a great place for me to just chat quickly about the avalanche rating scale. There's a whole page from that link. This rating scale is used on every avalanche forecast, no matter where you are in the U.S. So something to take a look at if you have any questions about the danger rating scale. But here in Colorado, we're in Vail Summit, where I'm at. So I'm just going to go through that forecast and how to use it on the CIC website. Basically, just click the region that you're in, hit get the forecast. It should take you right there. So this took me right to the Vail and Summit County forecast. I'm going to go back to the homepage of CIC, typically because that's where I like to start reading my forecast. And as you see up here, I have it bookmarked. I look at it every day. I encourage everyone to bookmark it. It should be, part of the, websites you view every day. Everybody looks at the news, and this is kind of the news on the backcountry and the avalanche conditions. So important to look at every day. So when I go to the CIC forecast, I typically look at a few things right off the bat. just the map itself, get a general idea of the danger rating for not only my region, but all the other regions in Colorado. I'm always curious what else is going on. They often post some great relevant photos of recent avalanches or avalanche conditions right up here in the upper right. And then also some pertinent news that might have come out, maybe recent avalanche accidents, etc. So yeah, that's kind of what I do. Look at kind of give me the highlights of the avalanche forecast. Then I just go ahead and click through into my actual zone and kind of go through the website or the forecast in a linear fashion. They present it kind of like big picture to small picture. So here we have above, near, and below tree line. They're going to assess different danger ratings for those three separate zones. As we all know, the snow conditions can be very different between below and above tree line and near tree line. So obviously have different ratings. I'm going to go just scroll down and just read the summary. That's the forecast is going to give me kind of the gist of what's going on. What are the problems to look at? What terrain to avoid, and maybe what terrain might not have as many issues. This is just a great summary of what the current avalanche forecast is. So as you see for today, pretty much above, near, and below tree line is moderate. And really they're telling us about wet snow, wet avalanche potential is kind of the main thing right there. Then as I scroll down, they're going to highlight kind of the individual problems within the forecast itself. Again, something to keep in mind when you're looking at the forecast. If you don't know what some things are as they're defined on the website, you can simply click this little information icon. It's going to just bring up a window telling us more about whatever they're defining here. So great place to answer some questions. Again, after I read the summary, I'm going to go figure out what the individual problems in the avalanche forecast are. So again, loose wet here. It's going to tell us kind of the likelihood and size of the avalanche that we may be able to trigger. And they're also going to give us the information on what I like to call the avalanche rose or the avalanche compass here, which highlights the main aspects and elevation. So below, near, and above tree line, and all these separate aspects that lie in those different zones. So a great way to kind of give you the information because the snow is going to be much different on different avalanche or different aspects and elevations. As I scroll down more, it's going to give me a bit more information on those problems. Again, photos, maybe relevant photos. As you see, another avalanche problem we have, persistent slab, going to tell me where that might happen, and then give me relevant photos going along with it. That kind of gives me a pretty good idea of the avalanche forecast. Now, after I read, the initial avalanche forecast, I just want to keep in mind that, these are observations that the forecasters are seeing out there in the places that they're visiting and based on the field reports that they're receiving from the public. So when we go out in the backcountry, we want to make sure that our head's on a swivel. We could find, say a wind slab issue on an aspect that they might not have highlighted. We always want to be doing our own kind of self avalanche forecasting while we're in the backcountry. The avalanche forecast is a great start, but conditions change and just small areas can have different avalanche conditions that might not be in the avalanche forecast. As I scroll down a bit more, we're getting into a bit of a weather forecast. We can look at the weather through here. I like to go to NOAA weather, which I can show just in a bit here. And then if I scroll down more, I can look at archive forecasts. This is a great feature if you just want to, maybe you're going to a different zone that you haven't been to in a month. I want to figure out kind of what the avalanche conditions have been for the past week, get an idea of what I'm getting into. So I can look at some archive forecasts for different areas and get the idea of what the avalanche conditions are in a zone that I'm not even in right now. So a great way to kind of get to know a location that you're not currently in. Great. I'm going to scroll back up here and just click the forecast discussion. This is another tab I like to view every day. And this is where the forecaster is just going to go into a bit more detail on the avalanche conditions, the forecast that they gave, maybe talk about the evolution of the snowpack, the past, present, future of it. And they're also going to just highlight maybe what to look for down the road with the current weather and maybe current weather systems that are coming through. So a great place to get a bit more in-depth information on the avalanche forecasts. They'll also highlight some great photos here as well. Give us some kind of trend, a great place to get a glimpse of what the forecast has been in the past and what it might be the next day. So I encourage everybody to read this as well. And then there's a great observations and weather data tab. I can see avalanche observations. This is very prudent if I'm going out into specific elevations and aspects. I can see where avalanches have occurred, maybe in the similar area at those aspects and elevations. So a great place to get an idea there. We can click the button and see all avalanche observations and also search for avalanches in different areas. We can also see field reports, maybe some observations that have come through from the public. A great place to kind of get to know maybe an area that the forecaster has not highlighted. And then some weather observations can be found on this page as well. So some really good information in all these tabs that it's going to give us a much better idea of what we're going to find out there along with the forecast itself. So great, some great stuff here that I encourage everybody to look at every day. I just wanted to highlight some other features of the CIC forecast website. One is submitting an observation up here. I encourage everybody to do this whenever they see something in the backcountry, or maybe they didn't see something. Great place to do that. If you take any kind of avalanche level 1 course, they should teach you how to submit an avalanche observation, or I'm sorry, just an observation in general. And again, these observations are really, really key for the forecasters, because again, they're only able to visit certain locations, certain days. So the information they receive from the public is it's going to help them formulate a more well-rounded avalanche forecast. So great place to do that. Another really great thing I like in the CAC forecast website is the weather stations. So say I'm going to go to a zone. I don't know what's happened with the weather, maybe in that zone for a certain amount of time. So there's some great weather stations all around Colorado. So for example, we're in Vail Summit here. I want to see what's going on at Hoosier Pass. I can click that weather station here. It's going to tell me what the temperature's been. We're getting into spring when, we're recreating in the spring. If we are, we want to know if it's been below freezing, for example, the night before. That's going to tell us if it's safe to go out the next day. We can tell wind speeds, wind direction, accumulation of snowfall, all kinds of pertinent weather data that's going to help us get an idea of what has been going on in that location that we're not at. So some really good information. If I'm going to go drive maybe 4 or 5 hours away and kind of want to know what I'm getting into, what's been going on in that location, if there's a weather station that can kind of help me formulate that, it's going to make the trip a bit more successful, I think. So a really good feature to use on the site. So I encourage everybody to check these out. I think, another spot is field reports. Again, this was highlighted in that tab in the forecast itself. It's loading here, but again, it's just the field reports and the avalanches itself are reiterated on that tab I explained earlier, but another way you can kind of get to them. They put them on a nice Google map here, allowing you to kind of drill down and maybe find them a bit easier. So another great feature to check out. That's all I really have to go over. There's some other great stuff in the CIC website here. I encourage everyone to go check out almost every link on the website. I also encourage everyone to make a donation to the CIC website. We rely on the CIC forecast throughout the winter to keep us safe in the backcountry and formulate our own judgment in the backcountry. So a really great resource to support. All right, I'm going to send the screen back to you,
Sounds
Ben.
good.
All
Justin,
right.
if you wanted to go ahead and share, and you can just start your trip planning workshop here. Pat, we did have a request when Justin's done, if you had some time to run us through Gaia, since I know you use that as well.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know if I can do that simply because it's a web-based, or it's an app on my phone. I don't know. Is there a web-based version of it?
There is. You should maybe open it up while Justin's giving his presentation.
Okay, great.
Yeah, check it out, and Dan, we'll get that for you if we can, buddy. Beautiful.
Awesome, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in here. As Pat kind of already went over, there's multiple resources you can utilize for the trip planning realm of things here. So for this evening's presentation, we're just going to do a quick virtual tour planning session here and show you guys some of these resources that I personally like to use here. So first and foremost, the first thing we kind of want to do for the day would be aligning your group. Group dynamics are crucial, and that's going to kind of be the first thing you want to figure out is who you're going out with, and then beyond that, what your goals are for the day and where your risk tolerance levels lie. Because if you don't align those two, then you're already setting yourself up for failure. And so we can't really choose the terrain we're going into until we get our group, we align our goals, we align our risk tolerance levels, and then we check the forecast, we look at the weather, we look at the avalanche forecast, and then based off of those two, we kind of decide what terrain we want to travel into for the day. So it's super important. We don't want to really start here. Again, we want to start with the group, followed by the forecast, and then that'll dictate the terrain that we want to travel through. So for today's session, I don't know about you guys, but with all this COVID stuff, I personally haven't been ski touring in about 3 weeks here. It's very, very unfortunate, especially since I do this for work. So we're going to pretend here. We're going to pretend that it was a time where we actually were able to get out and get some turns in and have some fun here. So again, the first thing I want to do is kind of align my group for the day. And so we're going to kind of just pretend I'm going to go out with a couple of buddies here. Let's imagine Pat and I are going out for the day, and we're really, you know, our goal for the day is just to get out and maybe get into the Alpine and get some sunshine, because the week prior there was a storm and we really didn't get out to, you know, get above tree line and have some fun. So our goal for the day would just be to get in the Alpine and get some nice turns in. And we agreed, you know, to kind of keep it simple as far as the day's terrain choices. And so after that, we would come to the forecast. I went to an archive forecast here. As Pat kind of showed you, we can look at the previous forecasts throughout the whole season. And so we're kind of make-believing here that we are in the middle of January. We're January 16th here. So me and Pat got together. We looked at the forecast. Looks like we're moderate, near and above tree line, and we're low below. Not to get too much entrenched in here, but we're looking at the avalanche problem today as being persistent. We know that of the 9 avalanche problem types, persistent slab problem is one of the most dangerous and one of the hardest to manage. And so we're looking at a persistent slab problem on north through east through southeast, near and above tree line, with possible chance of triggering it, and it could be large enough to kill you. So with that being said, we definitely are instilled in our mindset today that we want to kind of keep it simple with our terrain choices. So again, really just instilling that we want to kind of start there with your group goals, look at the weather, look at the avalanche forecast, and that'll kind of dictate the terrain you travel through here. So we decided that we wanted to go up to Loveland Pass for the day. And maybe we do have a little bit of experience on the pass here, and we're going to demo some of the resources today being CalTopo and Google Earth, but there's a lot of other resources you can utilize. Pat went over them kind of earlier in the presentation here. Guidebooks are great resources to start to learn terrain. A lot of guidebooks do a really good job of highlighting terrain that maybe is more spring terrain, more winter terrain, trailhead locations, ascent, descents, maybe certain terrain traps or heightened areas to avoid. A lot of the guidebooks as well will have actual terrain photos, like real life photos. You can also use just a quick Google search. You can see a lot of different resources like Powder Project, Backcountry Recon, just people's blogs, people's trip reports, and get a good understanding of kind of what the terrain looks like before you go out there. So, but again, for today's purposes, we're going to be showing you CalTopo and Google Earth here. So it looks like a lot of you guys have used CalTopo before. So some of this might be a review for you guys, and hopefully for those of you guys who have used this, you get a little bit of benefit from this presentation here. So there's a lot of stuff on this website, and we can spend a lot of time covering it. So what we're going to do today is just highlight some of the key features that I like to use. So first and foremost here, we have our search box. And like I had mentioned, Pat and I decided we wanted to go to Loveland Pass, times where we were actually able to go out and ski. So I can just type in here Loveland Pass, and it's going to bring you kind of right onto where you had typed. So this is Loveland Pass here in Colorado. You can zoom in, you can zoom out here. All right, and so that's using that search box here. The next thing, we're going to come over here to the upper right hand side of the screen, and we're going to see some different layers and overlays that we can utilize. So the first thing we'll talk about are base layers. We click on that guy and we see a whole list of different base layers that we can utilize. And again, I encourage everybody on here, if you haven't played around with this stuff, definitely take the time to do so. Some of the ones we'll just highlight today would maybe if you are keen to reading map and compass or Motorpo lines, something like a Forest Service map might be more up your alley. If you can read different terrain features and so forth via the contour lines. So that's a Forest Service, map builder, hybrid. This is a crowdsourced one, so it's a little bit of mixture of all of it. You have a little bit of satellite imagery, a little bit of terrain relief shading. And then scrolling on down here, this is the one I typically like to use, and this is satellite imagery. And reason being is I get to look and I see I have a better understanding of the vegetation and so forth that I might be traveling into. So again, I just encourage everybody to play around in a lot of this different stuff, and you can see what different layers are out there. Cool. So another thing I can show you is that you can actually stack layers on top of each other. So maybe a satellite and the Forest Service here pops in, and I can pull out that Forest Service as much as I want into that satellite imagery. So that's pretty cool. You can get crazy with that. You can stack additional layers on top of that. So again, I encourage you guys to definitely play around with that a little bit more. So continuing down with the overlays here, first one I like to use is the contours. And again, that's going to kind of show me terrain shape features and different elevation bands. Scrolling on down here, this guy right here, slope angle shading. If you have never seen this, this is probably going to be one of your new best friends here. So as you saw when I clicked it, we start to see some color on the map there. So those of you guys who maybe have had some avalanche education might know that slope angle is one of our biggest indicators of if we are in or near avalanche terrain. So it's a great resource to utilize. And not sure if you guys are aware of what our prime range of avalanche occurrence is in relation to slope angle, but your slope angle range for avalanche is you're looking at about 30 to 45 degrees. So generally below that, you are generally out of avalanche terrain, and above that, not to get into too much detail here, avalanches typically tend to kind of slough themselves off. So 30 to 45 degrees is pretty much your prime time range of avalanches in the sense of slope angle. So with that being said, I clicked on the slope angle shading here, and we start to see all this color. And then we also see this legend at the top here. And so everything that's not in color is below 27 degrees in accordance to this map here. Now, this is a great starting point. It is a great tool, but this is not your end-all decision-making tool. Reason being is that this color overlay here, it's based off of a digital elevation model scale. And so if you encounter what we call micro terrain, pieces of terrain that are within these 40-foot contours, there's a chance that it might not show up. So again, great tools to use here with the slope angle shading, but this can't be your end-all decision-making tool. You're going to want to make sure that once you do get in the field, you're continually verifying with your inclinometer there. The digital elevation model it got much better for Caltopa. I believe it was December they changed to LiDAR. So if you looked at this now compared to last year, it's way different, way more detail. And so Caltopa has been doing a great job of bettering their website because they see how useful it is. So down here, again, I encourage you guys to play around with this a little bit more. I guess the last one I'll show you here is pretty cool, is sun exposure. And so you can click the sun exposure or click a time and see how much sun is being exposed at that time, which is pretty cool. So we can see here on Loveland Pass, 7 o'clock. You can also do it through Google Earth, which I'll show you guys here after this. but we can see where the sun isn't showing, and so it's pretty cool, especially in the springtime when timing is pretty crucial when we're looking to time our descents so that they're not getting too warm. Cool. So that kind of hits a lot of these, or at least the ones that I like to use, the key ones, the overlays and the base layers. Again, I encourage all you guys, if you haven't already, to play around with that as much as you can here. So with that being said, I'm going to kind of start my tour here. Now, CalTopo is also a really great tool to utilize because you can save all of these maps. And right now is a great time because we really aren't supposed to be going out. It's a great time to start playing around on these kind of resources and developing an atlas, a run list catalog. That then once next season comes around, you'll have this book here that basically you can pick and choose different terrain based off weather, avalanche, groups, goals, and objectives for the day. And you'll just have this book of different areas you can choose. And basically what you do is, I'll show after that, you just share a map, save your map to your Google account. Cool. So first thing I want to, basically the things I'm going to show you with CalTopo for tour planning are going to be adding a marker, adding a line, and adding a polygon here. So the first thing I'll show you is how to add a marker. Adding a marker can be useful to mark trailheads, to mark camping areas, to mark huts, to mark decision points. So basically, as you saw, I hit add and hit marker, and this little dot showed up. Now I can click this and I can move it wherever I want. And so maybe I want to go ahead and mark where the trailheads are. So I take this little dot here and I put it right here on the trailhead. And pretty cool. I can get as crazy as I want with this. I can change the style. I like to use a P a lot for parking, so I'll just a little P on there. Maybe I want it to be black. I want it to be red. I'm going to label it top of pass and save it. So as you can see, it's marked as a little parking thing there. And I can click on this and it can give me some relevant information here, the lat longe of that actual location there, and get a little bit more detail as well, exact slope angle, elevation I'm at, and aspect. Again, super useful information, especially if you're doing multi-day trips or you want to mark a hut. All right, so that's how you would put a marker there. So maybe I want to mark that parking lot there, and I'll throw another marker at the bottom of the parking lot. All right, so boom, there's bottom parking. Cool, so that's how you do a marker. And again, there's a couple examples of when you would want to use that marker. So next thing we'll show is a line. And so similar, going to come up to add. You can also do it over here, add new object, add line. And so lines can be useful for marking exact down tracks, marking up tracks. And so first off, maybe Pat and I decided, again, one of our goals today was to get out and get some in the Alpine here. So maybe I could draw a line as our up track and following up this ridge here. Okay, and then maybe this is a decision point here of, again, when we're tour planning, we want to have multiple options, and that way we don't get pigeon-toed into one route. So it's easier to make decisions and no-go calls. And so this is just an example here. Maybe that would be a decision point. So I can mark this guy right here. And again, you can change the marker to whatever you want. So boom, that could be a decision point. At this point, we decide if we want to continue through here or if we want to go up the ridge. All right, so there's an example just quickly of how to do a line. And then similar to the marker, I can click on this guide. It can give me some relevant information. It's going to tell me how far it is. I can click on it a little bit and further and get the terrain statistics, excuse me. And as you can see, very relevant information here. Tells me the minimum, maximum, average elevation, how much gain it is, minimum, average, and maximum slope angle. It gives me an idea of the average aspect that I was on and where I'm at in relation to vegetation. So really, really awesome information here. All right, and so that's how you do a line, and I'll continue the tour here just to make it complete when I'm finished. But now I want to get down here and show you how to do a polygon. And so let's imagine that, you know, as I mentioned earlier, kind of before we get to this stage, we want to align our goals, risk tolerance levels, and look at the avalanche and weather forecast. And so we did quickly look at the forecast, and we saw we had a persistent avalanche problem on certain aspects and elevations. And we talked about slope angles. And so for this tour's purposes, Pat and I decided that we really don't want to get on any terrain that's steeper than 30 degrees. We just don't think we think it's too dangerous. And so what we can do now is we can start opening and closing terrain based on goals, objectives, or hazards. And so if we look at this little patch right here, we can see there's a lot of red. And that red, if we remember that scale, tells us that's 35 to 45 degrees. And so based on our, sometimes I like to call it terrain contract, we wouldn't want to go there. And so we're planning this tour here so that when we get in the field, we don't get enticed into the powder is nice, and then we drop into this and then potentially get into a problem here. So we are going to close this terrain. So what I can do with a polygon is I literally can just polygon out this whole piece of terrain. And maybe I just label it a no-go. I'm a huge fan of redding my no-goes. I green my goes, and I put an orange for question marks that I want to definitely verify, just like you saw that orange there for a decision point. So there's a good example of how to do a polygon to close a run. And then similarly, you can click on that guy, you can get some terrain statistics, and it's going to show you your elevation, average, mix, or min, max, and gain, the slope angle, min, average, max, aspect, and tree cover. So very, very relevant information there. Cool. So that's kind of how you do those, add those objects, the marker, the line, and the polygon. And what I'm going to do now is just kind of complete the tour based on, again, our goals and the quick forecast that we looked at. So this line here, I get picky. Again, I put greens as goes, so my up track would be green. Cool. So there would be a decision point right there. Looks like we do see some area up there that could potentially be outside of our contract. So maybe this little piece of terrain we would want to close off. All right, and so you can really get as crazy as you want. The more detail, really, the better, I think, with going through some of this terrain, especially in Colorado in winter when we're dealing with persistent avalanche problems. All right, and then just kind of continuing on down here, we kind of want to do a top to bottom run all the way down to that bottom parking lot there. And so as we looked at the danger rating, it was low below tree line. So I'm not going to worry about getting into too much into detail into here. And if I wanted to spend more time on here, maybe I start to put polygons around the rest of these colors that are putting me above the 30-degree terrain. All right, and again, I would encourage you to get as in detail as much as you can here. So this is my decision point of either I go up this ridge because I want to get a nice long run from the alpine. All right, so orange, that is a maybe, or if not, then I'll just come straight through here. So coming back, add another line, and maybe add two or up this way. All right. So there we are. That is kind of my up track. It brings me up to the top of this ridge, and I could similarly do a down track. All right. So if I wanted to come down and I wanted to make sure I was avoiding all of that terrain that I had just highlighted. Okay. And it puts me down to these trees. You can zoom in a little bit more if you wanted to, if you weren't comfortable skiing in tight trees, something along those lines. You can try and find the area that there wasn't as much trees. All right, la-di-da-di-da-di, and then boom, it takes us down to the car. All right, so there's just a really, really quick virtual tour on CalTopo utilizing a marker, a line, and a polygon. You can also organize these guys. You can create folders. So I can add a folder and I can label it, say Loveland Pass. Save it there, and you see it created a folder. And now every item that I created, I would have to go back into it now, but I would go to the folder and put it in Loveland Pass. And that's how you would start to organize your run atlas, is put different folders for different zones, and then just drop all of, or when you create all of these markers, lines, and Polygons, just make sure that you drop them in the Loveland Pass folder. So just to get those in the folder, I'm going to do that real quick because we are going to then learn how to export this into Google Earth. And feel free to ask any more questions while I'm doing this, or any of the guys can chime in with anything else that they like or features with CalTopo. All right, so here we are, almost there. Putting things all organization. All right, so we kind of got ourselves a little bit of a tour. And I might spend a little bit more time on this in real life scenario and maybe put a couple more options in here. I usually like to have at least 2 to 3 options on every tour here, but at least it kind of got you guys the gist of planning a tour here with CalTopo. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we can export this into Google Earth. And so what we're going to do is just go up here to the top, export KML for Google Earth. Make sure that everything you just made or that you want to export is clicked or is checked, and you're going to export that guy. All right, and then you can see it down here in the bottom. Wait for it to export. And I'm going to open this guy in Google Earth. Now, I'm a really big fan of using CalTopo in conjunction with Google Earth, in conjunction with terrain photos if you can, like searching on Google Earth. Using those 3, you'll get really intimate with the terrain. We'll get a really good understanding of what it looks like before we even go into there. So here's Google Earth here. Really, really great tool. As you can see, it gives us this 3D imagery of kind of what we're looking at. So I get a really good now understanding of the past, especially those of you guys who maybe have never been here before, looking at the CalTopo, now looking to this guy. Pretty cool. So we can kind of see our descent line. We see the top of the pass and how the original ascent brought us to here. And if this looked okay, maybe we head up and gain the ridge. If not, maybe we cut underneath, sort of thing. And then you can also work these together. And so another thing I like to do on these resources is highlight terrain traps. So I don't know if you guys can kind of see right here, but this looks like it's a little bit of a gully right here. And so you literally can do everything we just did on CalTopo on Google Earth. Put in marker. This is your marker. Okay. Polygon. Maybe I polygon out. This is a potential terrain trap that I couldn't see as good as, or on CalTopo as I can on Google Earth. All right, and then I label it gully. You can add images into it. You can similarly change the color, change the style. All right, and then I just did a little polygon, and then this guy would be your line. So kind of same way, and you can, again, working back and forth. Sometimes you can see stuff better, especially like these gullies and terrain traps or vegetational clues on Google Earth than you can on CalTopo. All right, and so I encourage you guys as well to play around on this. Another one I really like to use on here is your sun exposure, especially for springtime. So you can really see the time of day and when stuff might get first light, base your timing on that. Okay. Another thing, I guess, based on that, a good timing scale that I like to use for backcountry travel is that most people in the winter travel about 1.5 miles an hour on the snow. Now that can vary. You're on a Forest Service road, it's packed in, maybe not a lot of elevation gain, maybe you're closer to 2 miles an hour. You're breaking trail and really deep snow, maybe you're closer to 1 mile an hour. But the 1.5 miles an hour is a good average. And then for every 1,000 foot in elevation you gain, you typically want to add an hour to your tour plan. So that's a little bit based off the winter time scale, something that I use all the time in winter, and it holds very true. So again, just kind of reiterating, about an average 1.5 miles an hour, and then for every 1,000 foot in elevation you gain, you typically add an hour. Cool. So again, I want to show you guys how we can now put this back into Google Earth. So I'm going to come over here. I just right-clicked on it. I'm going to go to Save Place As. All right, and you can label it whatever you want. Let's do Front Range Splitfest Demo. And I'm just going to put it onto my desktop here. Save it. All right, hop on back. Now I would go to import, choose files, and then find my Front Range Splitfest. Click it. And we're going to start to see this gully show up. All right. So I'm going to uncheck everything, and I'm just going to put the gully and the marker place that I put on there. Otherwise, it'll import everything back in there, which is okay. But there you go. Now you just see what I just created on Google Earth. That gully shows up. And there's that little tack, that place mark that is placed. So really cool tools right there you can use interchangeably. And then from here, what you would want to do is save. Go to save this map. You can name it whatever you want. This is where you can share it to your buddies. You can make it viewable with that URL. You can create a password, and that way you can work on it with your friends across the country. And so let's just save it, Front Range Splitfest. And this is now going to save to my account. So then I just click on my Gmail account, which I signed into here on Caltopo. And this is all of the maps that I save here. And so I can come back to it and find it if I need. And so the other thing I want to show you guys, what I use in the field is once I plan out my tour here on Caltopo, then I'm a huge fan of exporting this into a map called Avenza. It's a mobile app, and it uses a geospatial PDF. And so what I would do, it doesn't want to work with satellite, so I come to the aerial satellite imagery here. I'm going to then go to print, and then print to PDF and JPEG. This screen here comes up. Then I want to place this box, or at least make sure that it's covering the whole area that you're going to be touring into for the day. You can get as crazy if you want with it. You can put exact scales on here. You can change it portrait, landscape. Alrighty. And then what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to hit generate PDF. This is also how I would print a map. Again, these resources are great, but you always want to make sure you're carrying a map and compass as well. So let this guy load up, and then basically what happens is there's going to be this little QR code at the bottom of the map here, and then I would hop onto my phone, onto Avenza, and I basically just hit a plus, and then I download or import map. I hit this QR code thing right here, and then literally go down the screen, my phone hits it, and it downloads right to my phone. And then once I get into the field, what's going to happen is it's going to show a blue dot pretty much where I'm at. Again, with it being a geospatial PDF, is that blue dot will follow you throughout the day. So we basically would pull out our phone, be like, oh yeah, it looks like we are nearing our decision point. Oh yeah, look down the, oh yeah, that was that no-go spot. I'm glad we decided maybe not to go ski, that sort of thing. And so that's how you transport this into the field, at least how I like to do it using the Avenza. And there's other resources as well, Gaia. I think we might, if we have time, try and do a Gaia, at least talk about it a little bit on here. Or some of the other guides can kind of speak to some of the other resources that they might want to use. But again, right now is a great time to start using this because you can start planning out all these different zones, springtime, wintertime, and then next season you're going to have a whole big atlas of runs to get to pick and choose from. So that is basically all I have. I'm going to go ahead and kick it back to Ben. Thank you guys very much. Much appreciated.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Justin. That was awesome. If you guys have questions, make sure you're typing them in. Justin is happy to field some questions from you. Oh, no. I wanted to go. So a lot of great resources out there for sure. Pat, would you like to do a quick Gaia demo?
Yeah, I certainly can. I think it's very similar to all the other apps. I have it up here on my screen.
Perfect. I'll stop sharing here for you. But yeah, we won't go into too much detail there on Gaia. It's got a ton of the same features that we just went over, and it connects to your phone just like Justin just showed you. So either one is great. I'm not sure that Gaia has slope shading. on there, which I think would be a benefit of using CalTopo.
I
We've
think
had
it's
some-
a feature of that you can get in the pro version, I believe. We'll do cell
Perfect.
shading for
We've
you.
we've had some people say that CalTopo isn't available, or it's only available for North America. We actually have a few people tuning in from Australia, it looks like. So they'd love a quick info session on Gaia. I'll let you present when you're ready here, buddy.
Yeah, sure thing. All right. I have Gaia up here now. And in fact, I have logged into it in my computer because I found a route of Denali. I did this years ago. And I was like, oh, you know, maybe I want to know where I'm going up there. And of course, somebody had already developed a route for it. So you can go on Gaia, search for routes or maps people have made, and then import them into your app, which is really useful.
Yep, that's I actually have, you know, Rocky Mountain National Park or Teton National Park. If you really look out, sometimes you can find these GPX files and then, you know, download them into Gaia, and you've got all these routes done for you, which is pretty cool.
Right, exactly. Yep. If we go back to the map itself, very similar to CalTopo or some of the other apps out there. They all kind of or do the same thing, just kind of different features. So again, maybe we'll look up Loveland Pass. And again, similar things where we can add points, waypoints, give them notes. I encourage people to add notes to anything they put on a map. It's any prudent information. Similarly, create lines, just like Justin was doing. I'm just following quickly on this already trail marked on the map. But again, giving me the statistics, I can change these different modes. Hiking is obviously the one we want to use here. And hit save, again, giving us statistics on the line we drew. And then similarly polygons, just like Justin was drawing on CalTopo. So just a different avenue on how to use it, just a slightly different kind of tool, but same features basically as any other mapping tool. Again, has some print, saving different layers that we can look at, satellite with labels, for example, zooming in and out, saving the map. So again, very similar to kind of Justin's demos, just different kind of locations of where the tools are, but I would say it's about 90% the same kind of as using that software. Again, we can save the maps, import them into our phone, and I think that's really the one of the best features.
That's right, and they're kind of automatically. So right now, what Pat's doing, next time he opens Gaia on his phone, this stuff will be there if he saves it, which is
right. Yep. And just to touch on CalTopo, you know, not applicable for people not in the North America, but similarly there, you know, I create a map in CalTopo, and that's automatically available in my app. What I want to make sure with any app is that I'm downloading the maps. Say I'm in the backcountry, I have no cell service, but I'm always going to have that GPS feature on my phone. I want to make sure that I have downloaded that map area to my phone. Otherwise, the map's just simply not going to show up if I don't have cell service to view it with. So something you want to make sure you do with any app you go out with is make sure you have the map that you're going to be in downloaded to your phone. Great. I hope that answered some questions about Gaia. I'm going to send the screen back to you, Ben.
perfect. Thanks so much.
And just wanted to make another note. I encourage people to really develop these maps. They're super important just to make decisions on what you want to ride during the day. Maybe I made a good exit of a zone that's got a difficult gully to avoid. Maybe I can note that on my phone when I'm out in the field. You know, just using that actively to make better decisions and avoid problem areas in the future is really important. And when you have a really robust run list developed on your phone for different areas, you can look at the avalanche forecast and then quickly look at your master document and kind of figure out where the best place to ride is. That's all I have.
Well, awesome. So any questions you guys have on trip planning, make sure that you're putting them in the Q&A here. This discussion will be saved on FrontRangeSplitfest.com, Front Range Splitfest, the Facebook page. So you can go to that and rewatch it. You know, this was certainly a lot to take in an hour. So we just wanted to make sure that this discussion and this how-to is available for you guys. If you have questions, you know, Pat and Justin are here in Colorado. If you have any questions for these other guides, feel free to reach out right now. And kind of the last thing we'd like to say is, you know, now that you know how to plan a trip doesn't mean that you need to be going out tomorrow and split boarding. We do have kind of a defined process here, starting with, you know, demoing a split for the first time, riding it on resorts, which we obviously can't do now, but progressing into actually booking a guided day, and then, you know, progressing into that companion rescue course, so that area level 1 that Pat talked about a little bit, and making sure that you get that wilderness first aid course that we discussed last night, you know, and then it's time to really work on planning trips and split boarding a ton and developing these skills. But that's something that's very important, right? That you guys need to be thinking about. All right. So, and then we had one more note from Sherpa here that, you know, to make sure that if you are using these navigation tools, obviously you have to have your phone charged. You know, Justin and Pat have certainly addressed that. It's that, you know, you always need a map and compass, right? That's always your fail safe. I even bring, you know, a battery or a phone charger, maybe a little packable battery port, just in case. I think we've all been out in the backcountry plenty of times and watched our phones go from full battery to dead, you know, in under an hour. So that's something to really be thoughtful of. If you are relying on your cell phone, keep it warm. You know, I even put a hot hands on it, you know, a little hand warmer just to keep it warm in my pack if I am going to rely on it, right? So something very important to be thinking of. Well, all right, guys, thanks again for tuning in. Guides, feel free to turn on your cameras and say bye to the crowd. You guys let us know if you have any more questions. And
yeah, thanks again for chiming in, guys. I just want to just reiterate that, and we tell it to all of our Avalanche course students that backcountry navigation is a tool in its own. And so this was just a really quick demo on a couple of the resources, and really quick at that. And so really strongly encourage that you guys take an orienteering course, learn how to use a map and compass, take an avalanche course as well. I think I saw some stuff in there about making sure not to undercut slopes and so forth. And I wish we could talk about that more, but that's definitely super important stuff, is learning how to identify terrain and so forth in conjunction with planning these tours. So just be very careful out there. Know that the education never stops. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning in the past couple of days, and hopefully this stuff settles and we can get back life to normal soon.
Awesome. Looks like we did have a couple Q&A questions coming in. We will make sure that we answer those. Justin, you might jump over there, Pat as well. And yeah, guys, just a reminder about the ARI fundraiser we're doing. You can own, you know, these 2 boards before anybody else. And they are definitely going to be 2 of our favorite boards for the next season. We expect to sell out pretty quick on these bad boys. But that is it. Thanks for tuning in, for, you know, discussing these topics with us. We will continue to bring more webinars. Our next one is going to be on expedition splitboarding, and we'll be discussing Denali with Pat Gephardt and Michael Ackerman of Silverton Avalanche School. And so definitely tune in for that. You can find those details on the Weston Backcountry community page or our Facebook page. Definitely tune in for those, and we're going to keep this online education going. So thank you guys again for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.